Hi, today I'm going to be showing you the way that I make Colcannon, a traditional Irish dish. It's not necessarily exactly traditional the way I make it, but you can change things up and do whatever you want. And traditionally in Ireland, I think that that's often the case. So the ingredients that we're putting in today are potatoes. I like russet potatoes, which is a great potato for mashed potatoes, very starchy. I leave the skins on because I like the taste of them, but you should give them a good scrub before you do it if you're going to do that. Green onions or spring onions, we're going to be using those. I've got half a head of green cabbage here, which I'm going to be cutting up thin. Milk, butter, and I've got a package of side bacon here. You can use ham, you could use sausages, you don't have to use meat at all. There's a variety of different things that you can do. So when you come back, I'm going to have this stuff all chopped up and ready to go. Okay, so I have most of the stuff cut up. I have the potatoes on in water on the stove. Use lots of water and get some salt in there. I use kosher salt for pretty much everything like this. I saved one green onion for you to look at because they're huge. And you may not want that big of a bite of onion in your Colcannon. So you split the white part down the middle and then chop it up. And it won't be nearly as big a bite of onion at once. Otherwise, you'd have to really chop it very, very fine. And not everybody necessarily has those knife skills. So I have a frying pan warming up on just medium heat. I'm going to put the bacon on now. Now that's about as hot as you'd want it. It'll cool off a little now that there's bacon in it. If it's too hot, turn it down a bit. You don't want to brown the bacon too much. You want to kind of render the fat out. So you want it to be a bit of a slower fry than you would normally cook on bacon. Now we're just going to let that fry. It just needs to be stirred, every couple of minutes. Make sure that it's not sticking to the pan. If it does, just scrape the pan. Get all that tasty goodness off the bottom of the pan. We are going to be using the fat from the bacon to fry the cabbage. And then we'll add the green onions to it. We don't really want to fry the green onions too much. We want but we do want to soften them a little bit. So we don't want to brown them and we don't want to get them mushy. So we just put them in after the cabbage is almost completely done. So this is going to take a few minutes. I'm waiting for the potatoes to boil. Once they come to a good boil, turn them down a bit. They don't need to boil on a heavy boil like pasta does for the entire time that they're cooking. Keep them at a little more than a simmer. Keep them so that they're boiling, but you don't have to, boil them until the pot's overflowing. And then, so we're going to work on. As you can see, store-bought packaged bacon has a fair amount of water in it. So that is going to come out first, really, before the fat really renders much. So you just have to be patient and go through that stage. Don't be tempted to turn it up. Take your time. This meal doesn't take a lot of time to make. We are going to have one extra step that most people do not do with Colcannon. Most people serve Colcannon basically like fancy mashed potatoes. So straight onto the plate, lots of butter, the cabbage and the green onions in it, creamy, delicious for sure. But what I like to do is I like to put it into a baking dish and put it in the oven for a good half an hour at a fairly high temperature. Then the top gets nice and crusty, very much like a shepherd's pie would. I love doing it that way, but it's your choice. You can do it whatever way you like. I suggest you try it because if you like shepherd's pie, like most people do, I think that you'll enjoy it. Colcannon served like shepherd's pie. Then when it comes out of the oven, you just let it cool for a bit and then serve it straight out of the baking dish. It's delicious. So now I can see some of the fat starting to render out of the bacon. Most of the water is gone. Just keep moving it around. Like I said, if you feel like it's starting to brown, turn it down. You can get bacon crispy without high heat. And you do want to get it fairly crispy. You want it to have texture. There is going to be cabbage in the Colcannon as well, and the spring onions, but you do want some texture. You want a little bit of the crunch of the bacon. You want to know what's in there. It's important not to overcook your potatoes. For anyone that's made mashed potatoes, which I'm sure is most people, you know that if you overcook your potatoes, they tend to absorb an awful lot of the water, and you can't really drain that out once you've done that. And then you end up with kind of watery mashed potatoes, and you definitely don't want that. So you only want to cook your potatoes so they're fork tender, meaning that if you stick a fork into them, they will split. And you don't have to use force to get it in. That's all you need. Remember, especially in this case, it's going to be going in the oven for more. So as long as they're soft enough to mash, then that's definitely what you want to do. I strongly recommend getting one of these, what I call honeycomb frying pans. They're stainless steel, but they're non-stick, but you can scrub them. You can scrub them with a metal scrubber. As a matter of fact, here's the scrubber I use. It's a chainmail scrubber with a piece of silicone on the inside. You can put that right in the dishwasher and it comes up clean. You can scrub the crap out of these pans and really get them clean. It's a fantastic product. A few bucks, 15 bucks on Amazon, I think, but I'm sure that most kitchen shops would have it. See, I'm starting to get a little browning there, so I'm going to turn it down just a touch. Be patient. Like I said, you can use any kind of protein in this you want. A ham diced up, sausages cooked, pre-cooked, and then sliced would be fantastic. I've done that before. Actually, it is fantastic. With the sausages, you do have to make sure that you don't use a very fatty sausage. You don't want your Colcannon to get greasy. But again, you can do the same thing as we're going to do here. Once we take the bacon out of the pan, we're going to use some of that fat that's rendered in there to cook up this this cabbage till it's soft. Now I've got my potatoes come to a boil. I'm going to just turn them down a bit. You want to make sure that you've cut your bacon in relatively uniform sized pieces so that it all cooks the same as you do it. Same with your potatoes. You might as well take the extra time to cut them in roughly similar sized pieces so that they all cook at the same time. Because basically with the potatoes, you're not going to be taking them off the stove until the biggest pieces have reached the right tenderness. And by then, small pieces may be too mushy. We're not making potato soup here. That's a whole nother thing. I'm just getting a little bit of that fond off the bottom of the frying pan. My frying pan's cooling down a bit. The fat is still staying clear. I have my little puppy dog at my feet, wondering what the amazing smells are. The bacon. I don't think she likes potatoes. So I use a wooden spoon. You can use metal on this type of frying pan, but I use a wooden spoon. It's really the best for scrubbing the bottom of the pan to get the fond off. And you don't have to worry about the heat of it. You can leave it sitting in the pan while it's cooking, and you don't have to worry about burning your hand when you pick it up. This is looking really good. We're still a minute or so away, or more away from it being quite enough. In the meantime, I'm going to get a bowl, and I'm going to get some paper towel. And I'm just going to use that to put the bacon into when we scoop it out of the pan. Now, you can use garlic in this recipe. I don't think that that's traditional at all. I think some fresh herbs. You could, and you know, you don't have to use cabbage either. Leeks is a commonly used ingredient in place of cabbage. Colcannon actually means white cabbage in Gaelic, but you can use leeks, you can use watercress. Kale is a common ingredient that people use. I even like to put peas in. Of course, you can use parsley, you can use cilantro if that's your thing. And when you're seasoning it, I mean, you season with salt and pepper for sure. But you don't have to not season with your favorite seasoning if you want to. You can add a little bit of tarragon. It'll give it a bit of sweetness. Or rosemary, give it a lot of fragrance. You can put something like chili powder into it to give it just a bit of a kick, or cayenne pepper. The pepper that I use is black pepper, but anytime you're using mashed potatoes, it's not a bad idea to use white pepper. It doesn't show in the mashed potatoes the way black pepper does, but I prefer the flavor of black pepper. We're getting really close now. You can see in the pan how it's all bubbling up. That's just the last bit of the water coming out, which is great. We're just going to continue to stir them around a bit. It's at fairly low temperature. I've only got mine at just less than 4 out of 10. And you can see that the fat is still clear. That's what you want. You don't want it to color much. I think we're just about ready to go. I'm going to use a slotted spoon. Be careful with this because it's very, very hot. Even though you're not doing it on high heat, it's still easily hot enough to give yourself a heck of a burn. Like I said, with this frying pan, you don't have to worry about the metal on metal. Doesn't hurt it a bit. I've had this frying pan for years, and when I give it a good scrub, it looks like new still. Get every last one out of there. Okay, that looks good. Put it back on the heat. Maybe turn it up just a bit, because when we put the cabbage in, we're going to have the temperature drop quite a bit in the frying pan. So let's get it good and hot and be prepared for that. See, I missed a couple pieces. Okay, it's just about time to check the potatoes. Still a little bit firm. I'm going to scoop one out, put it on the cutting board, and we'll take a close look at it. So the fork goes in, but it doesn't really split. So I'm going to give that just another minute or so. I think I'm done with my knife. Put that in the wash. Okay, let's put the cabbage in. Okay, now cabbage has a lot of moisture in it. You're going to have salt to season with anyway, so let's get some salt into the cabbage because the salt will bring out the moisture in the cabbage. And to be honest, you don't even really need to fry the cabbage. What you can do instead is parboil it, just like you do with the potatoes. So you can put the cabbage into a pot and just bring it to a boil for maybe 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Gets it nice and tender. Then strain it. Give it a good straining because you don't want to be adding water to your mashed potatoes. But that'll do the trick too. You can definitely do that. So I'm keeping this at about 5. Again, we're not trying to get it browned so much as we are cooked. It's cooked with the bacon fat, so of course that's infusing it with all kinds of flavor, which would be fantastic. If you don't use a protein, just use olive oil or butter. You can use butter for this because you're not really frying at a very high temperature, so you don't have to worry about burning the butter. Okay, I'm going to take the potatoes off now. Okay. We'll just let those drain for a second right into the pot. I'm going to just leave that in the sink. I've got a bowl here that I'm going to use to mash the potatoes and mix everything up in. Gives me lots of room, so I try to make as little mess as possible. I'm going to add pepper. This is a 4 peppercorn mix that I like to use. Turn it up just a bit. You can tell, similarly to the bacon, when you've added the cabbage that the moisture starts to come out. It's actually deglazed the pan beautifully. So this pan could practically go straight back in the cupboard. I'm joking, of course, but it'll be pretty clean when we're done with it. That's not cooked enough. The cabbage will not cook very much in the oven once it's mixed in with the mashed potatoes. So we have to make sure that we pretty much cook it to the consistency that we want to eat it at before we bake it. So I'm going to put the oven on just at 350 or I'm starting to get the smell of the cabbage. Fantastic. Okay, I'm just gonna finish this up and then we'll be right back when we're gonna put it all together. See you in a bit. So now the cabbage is just about ready. So I'm gonna add the green onions right into the cabbage. Okay. Now we're just gonna give these a bit of a mix. And like I said, we're not really looking to try to cook the green onion. We certainly don't want any color on it. And we want it to maintain a bit of its bite, a bit of its freshness. So we just mix it up. Okay, now we can take this off the heat. Okay, now I'm going to mash the potatoes. So, what I like to do with mashed potatoes is make sure that I get all the butter in that I want in. See, they're perfectly cooked. Their russets are very dry if you mash them without any liquid in them. That's what makes a great mashed potato to me, because then you can really control the moisture level. And you can add stuff that's better than water. You can add milk, cream if you want, cream cheese, cheese. Now, you could use a potato ricer for this, obviously. I don't have one. I may get one. But the thing about a potato ricer is it doesn't work great on the skins. And I like the skins on. It really gives it a rustic look and flavor. You can taste the skin. Like I said, you should give them a scrub. You don't want to be tasting the dirt, but you do want to taste the skin. And, of course, as we all know, the skin holds a lot of the nutrients right underneath it. And there is a lot of nutrition in mashed potatoes, or in potatoes in general. So, now we're ready for the butter. So I'll just get a small knife here, and I like to just cut it in little slices like this. You can cube it up, but I find that this way it melts pretty fast. So don't be shy on the butter. To be honest, if you're going to have this meal, you have to kind of accept that it's a traditional Irish meal. Butter is a huge part of the cuisine in Ireland, as it is in many nations. But don't be shy on the butter. I always put the butter in first because I don't want to add the milk and end up with too liquidy. The butter obviously adds some liquid when it melts. So, good pinch of salt. Like I said, kosher salt. 4 peppercorn mix here. This is where, if you were adding garlic, you could add some raw crushed garlic here. You could use garlic powder. I would avoid any kind of garlic salt or onion salt. You don't really need, because we have spring onions in here going in. So these are coming up really nice. They're very thick. They're very starchy. The cabbage will have moisture in it, so you want it to be dry before that cabbage goes in. So now let's add some milk. Just going to add half of what I got out here. Once you get to this stage and you feel like they're mashed, you don't have to puree these. You don't have to mash them until they're perfectly smooth. Okay, I think they're just about right. I did not add any more of the milk. So I used maybe half a cup of milk. Now, when we're putting the rest of the ingredients in, we only want to fold it in. We don't really want to break it up too much. The bacon's already cut up. This cabbage is already cut up, as are the green onions. Once we need to have the mashed potatoes the way we want them before the rest of the ingredients go in. Then once they go in, we just fold them all together. So what I like to do is I like spread them out, make a bowl like that for the cabbage. So the potatoes are all around it and under it. Okay, all that goodness. Now we just start folding the potatoes over top of it. And we just go around and around. And you can see that there's a fair amount of liquid in the cabbage, which is now going into the potatoes. But the potatoes, because we didn't put too much moisture in them, are staying nice and consistency. Now the bacon goes in. Same thing with the bacon. Now we're getting it nicely incorporated. You definitely want to have that. You don't want to have globs of mashed potato in the middle, or even for that matter, too much bacon in one bite. You want it to be nice and evenly distributed. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's bring in our baking dish. Now I have some cooking spray here. You can use butter. You can just spread a little butter on it if you want. But this is a pretty easy way to do it. There's so much butter in this recipe that honestly, they probably won't stick too bad to the glass anyway if you're using Pyrex. If you're using metal, you might want to use it for sure, because metal is sticks a little more than glass does. Okay, now I'm going to switch to a spatula so I can get every last drop. And we're really just going to turn this into the pan. It's a 9 by 13 I'm using, but I'm making a lot here. I plan on having some leftovers. Samantha and I love Colcannon. Might even take some over to my parents. My dad is from Ireland, from Drogheda. So this is a dish that he enjoyed as a youth in Ireland. So you want to get it. I mean, you can leave it as rustic looking as you like. What I like to do is I like to get it nice and smooth. Smooth it out so it's even. Be careful not to have it domed in the center, because you want it to sort of brown and cook evenly. So push it to the edges. Use the spatula to get it nice and smoothed out. Okay, that looks good. Now, clean up around the edges of the pans, because this part will burn in the oven if you've got little bits along the edge of the pan. Now, what I like to do is take a fork and make some lines. I go diagonally. Sometimes I go and just go make some lines. And make some. Okay, so I'm finished with the fork, making the lines. You don't need to make it neat. As a matter of fact, the reason I do the lines is that it creates all kinds of little grooves and edges, and those will get brown and crispy when they're in the oven. So that's the main reason I do it. It's not so much a decorative thing. That's a little fancy for my liking. So middle rack in the oven in a 350 oven. Let's set it for 30 minutes. And we'll start with that. And then at 30 minutes, you check the oven to make sure it's brown the way you like it. If it's not brown enough, you just go a little longer. It's just that simple. So start. There we go. Be back in half an hour. Okay, so here we are. It's been half an hour. So we're going to take it out and check it now. See what it's like. Okay, it looks nice. I'm going to take it out. I'm going to show it to you. It's just starting to brown, get maybe a little bit crispy on top. You could easily take it out at this point. Let it cool for probably 10 minutes before you serve it. But I like it a little crispier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my oven up to 450. And give it another 15 minutes. And then the top should be nice and crispy. You might want to watch it at this point because you know the way it goes. Once it starts to brown, sometimes it can go pretty quick. But I'm going to come back and check in with you before we're done. So I'm back with my trusty silicone oven mitts. So it's still got 8 minutes left on the counter, but I see from looking at it that I think it's the way I like it. So that's just saying it's up to temperature. So I'm going to turn off the timer, turn off the oven, and take it out for you and show it to you and see what the way I like it. Okay. So there we go. Isn't that beautiful? Nice and brown, crispy bits, piping hot, absolutely delicious. You can serve this as a side dish. You can serve it as a main course. You could put more protein in it if you want. You can put, you can lay whole sausages into it if you like. Bigger chunks of ham, bacon. You can put some, make some wells and put some eggs into it. When you bake it, the eggs will bake in. You can put fried eggs on top. You can even whip some eggs and mix them in with the mashed potatoes before you put them in the oven. So lots of different things you can do. Don't worry about being traditional. Make it the way you like it. Use variations. Have fun with it. It's a very easy dish. Super satisfying. Loaded with carbs and butter. But, you know, you don't want to have it every day. But it's definitely a great treat to have. We'll see you next time.